Hello everyone. Welcome to our 12th episode of our journey to financial freedom. Today we are going to talk about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, one of the best-selling financial books in history, selling over 35 million copies. When growing up, author Robert Kiyosaki had two dads advising him. 1. A Stanford-educated PhD who followed traditional career thinking and was financially illiterate, also known in the book as the Poor Dad, his biological father. 2. A high school dropout who built a business empire employing thousands, the Rich Dad, who was his best friend's father. The two dads are a parable for two different approaches to wealth. Poor Dad recommends getting a secure job with good benefits and retiring with a pension. Rich Dad recommends amassing assets that make money for you, becoming financially literate, and practicing independent thinking. The Poor Dad represents the traditional view on work and money: go to school, get a good job and climb the ladder, prize stability over independence, buy a house, and spend money without a clear long-term plan. Most parents belong to this system, so they pass it down to their kids. The traditional view worked better in the 20th century, when strong growth and decades-long employment meant stability was a viable strategy. Nowadays, pensions are rarely guaranteed, job security at a loyal employer is rare, professional education and academic success are no longer guarantees for security. The Rich Dad represents what was then a more contrarian view: work for salary if you have to, but aim for financial independence, have your money generate more money, and take calculated risks boldly. Most people adopt the Poor Dad view of finances and life. Even worse, they let money control their life. Fear of not having money makes people work hard. Then once they get a paycheck, greed gets them to buy things they covet. But the joy is short-lived. As they spend unwisely, they have money problems, and the fear of not having money drives back in. They have to go back to work to get the next paycheck. This cycles endlessly. Even as their paychecks increase with raises, this is the rat race. Money ends up running their lives. They get stuck in jobs they dislike for the sake of money. From this book, learn how to achieve financial independence, why it's a terrible idea to see your home as your biggest investment, and how to overcome the biggest mental blocks to becoming wealthy. In Chapter 1 is presented the story of Robert Kiyosaki and Mike. The story starts in 1956 Hawaii, when both boys were 9 years old. Their first get-rich scheme was a counterfeit nickel-making company. They made plaster molds of the nickels and melted lead toothpaste tubes and filled the molds to produce the nickels. Their plan was foiled by Mike's father, who informed the boys of their illegal activity. After that day, the boys dedicated their free time to learning about finance and economics from Mike's father, the Rich Dad. The first lesson Mike's dad made the boys experience was hatred of the rat race. He was able to achieve this by making the boys work in one of his grocery stores for 3 hours for 10 cents an hour pay. Within a few weeks, Kiyosaki, tired of being exploited for labor, demanded that he receive a raise, but instead, Mike's father cut his pay and told him to work for free. Eventually, both boys tired of being underappreciated and unpaid, and they met individually with Mike's father. In their meetings with Rich Dad, he apologized for lack of pay and he offered them either the moral of the lesson or a pay raise. Both boys chose to learn the moral of the lesson, while Rich Dad offered them pay raises. He started at 25 cents, $1, $2, and even $5, which would have been considered a large amount of money for an hourly wage, but the boys still remained strong with their decision to learn the moral of the lesson. The lesson to get out of the rat race, and instead of spending your whole life working to put a little money in your pocket and a bunch of money in someone else's pocket. Out of all the lessons that were taught to the boys, this one was the most important. In Chapter 2, The Rich Don't Work for Money. The author tells his readers to forget the notion that life teaches. He says the only thing that life does is push you around. This chapter talks about people who are more comfortable in playing it safe because they were not taught early to take risks. The author develops the ideas that the poor and the middle class work for money, fear and greed cause ignorance and poverty, and the importance of using one's emotions versus thinking with emotions. The author also stresses that opportunities in life come and go. The rich recognize them instantly and turn them into gold bullions. Others do not see these opportunities because they're too busy seeking money and security. As the author says, well, that's all they're going to get. In Chapter 3, Why Teach Financial Literacy? The story of Kiyosaki and Mike continues later in life, 1990, and both of the now adults have made incredible leaps and bounds with regards to their finances and their socioeconomic status. Mike was able to take the lesson from his father and apply them to his life. He took control of his father's large business and increased every aspect of the empire, and he is currently raising his son to take control of the company once he retires. As for Kiyosaki, he was able to retire at the age of 47 with his wife Kim. According to Kiyosaki, there is one rule, and only rule that can help a person to build a strong foundation: know the difference between an asset and a liability, and make sure that you only control assets. So how do you put your money to work for you? The key is to buy things that generate income, also known as assets. You do not want to buy things that lose money over time or incur large expenses, also known as liabilities. This is obvious enough. But the most deceptive investments look like assets, but are actually liabilities. In Robert Kiyosaki's view, the most common mistake is buying a house as a primary residence and considering it an asset and their primary investment. His reason is that you don't get rental income on your house. Meanwhile, you're paying large expenses, mortgage, property taxes, etc. In steady state, this represents monthly negative cash flow that requires income to compensate. Kiyosaki basically considers things assets only if they generate cash. This is why many are stuck in the rat race. Someone buys an expensive house. Now she has high monthly expenses, so she has to keep working to sustain it. When it comes to beliefs about money buying freedom and the ability to enjoy retirement without fear of outliving one's money, this chapter catches the essence of the author's advocacy for financial independence. He says, intelligence solves problems and produces money. Money without financial intelligence is money soon gone. The author believes that financial literacy begins with a working knowledge of accounting. It is essential to know the difference between assets and liabilities. To make these two terms understandable to readers, the author makes a rudimentary diagram of these two concepts to motivate them to purchase assets in order to solidify the asset column, while keeping the liabilities, expenses, to a bare minimum. The author states that poor people remain poor because they do the opposite. They pile up on their liabilities and have zero assets, so that their balance sheets and income statements look out of balance. People have to understand that it's not how much they make, but how much they keep, according to the author, and this is an essential principle that this chapter focuses on. Chapter 4, Mind Your Own Business. In this chapter, the author slowly introduces the concept of real estate investing and uses McDonald's as an example. He points out that McDonald's may not make the best hamburgers in the world, but owns the most valuable intersections and streets in America. The author remarks that individuals need to mind their own business if they wish to become financially self-sufficient. They shouldn't mind their employer's business. They should strive for ways to become their own boss and nurture their own businesses. The author continues his discussion on building assets. To him, real assets are anything with value: stocks, bonds, mutual funds, income-producing real estate, notes, royalties from intellectual property, etc. This chapter also reveals the author's investment preferences: real estate and stocks. For real estate, he says he starts small and trades his properties for bigger ones and then delays paying taxes on capital gains through one IRS mechanism. More people have the potential to be happy, but common obstacles get in the way. People who overcome these obstacles get a huge advantage. Self-doubt or lack of self-confidence hold all of us back, to some degree. Some are affected more than others. In the real world, more than just intelligence and grades is required. Guts, balls, daring, tenacity are different names for the factor that plays a huge role in success. When you recognize a great opportunity, you must have the courage to chase it. A quote from Charlie Munger says, "We read a lot. But that's not enough, you have to have a temperament to grab ideas and do sensible things. Most people don't grab the right ideas or don't know what to do with them." Fear manifests in a lot of ways. Fear of losing or failure. Fear of losing makes you play it safe and avoid opportunities that can have huge upsides and relatively low downsides. Control your fear of losing, money or otherwise. Everyone has fear of losing money, but you have to handle it properly. Chapter 9, Getting Started. This chapter serves as a section on tips to create and build personal wealth. His first tip is, find a reason greater than reality to motivate you. What he means by this is to wake up the financial genius in oneself by empowering the mind. He says that people must have a strong purpose for living. The next tip is to feed the mind. By feeding the mind, the author contends that people acquire power of choice. The author also advises people to choose friends carefully. He says to avoid people who proclaim incessantly that the sky is falling and instead encourages readers to spend time with people who enjoy talking about money because they may have valuable lessons to share. The author also believes that people should study one field and then go out and learn a new one, although it is important to choose what one studies. Here is another tip that the author observes most people don't practice: pay yourself first. Even if short of cash, people must pay themselves first. This goes in tandem with managing three things efficiently: cash flow, people, and personal time. Another tip the author gives is being generous. He thinks it makes a lot of sense to pay one's broker well, as he's an ally, and your eyes and ears to the market. The author suggests having heroes. They are indispensable in life because they not only inspire, they also make it seem so easy. They stimulate the human mind into thinking, if they can do it, why can't I? Teach and you shall receive is another tip that the author shares. His words are eloquent concerning this idea. There are powers in this world that are much smarter than we are. You can get there on your own, but it's easier with the help of the powers that be. All you need to be is generous with what you have, and the powers will be generous with you. As you already know, this episode will appear publicly on Saturday, but don't forget that for members it is available from Friday, so don't miss the chance to become a member of this channel by clicking the join button in the video description or on the main page of the channel. I hope you've liked the short summary of Kiyosaki's book. We recommend you to read it and enjoy it. Till next time, take care of your money.